Oh boy, I'm feeling like Ajete Soa this morning. It's a Thursday. Good morning. Welcome Ghana, Africa, and the rest of the world to New Day, your award-winning show. I tell you what, we're throwing back today. So lots of things we'll be showing you here. I found a set of phones from back in the day, Siemens and Alcatel and all those ones. We'll be showing them to you. And if you thought Patapai's trousers was big, you know, see nothing yet. Good morning, guys.
Good morning. How are you doing?
If you thought Patapai's trousers was big, I mean, Patapai's trousers more like Ajos's trousers.
Yeah.
It was more old school. I don't even know why people make so much of a big deal about it. I mean, just because everybody's doing the, the pencil and the slim fit doesn't mean everybody wants to do it.
So,
I mean,
no, you're speaking. Are you speaking as his PRO? Because when you say he was doing old school, it means you have foreknowledge of what he planned to do.
Let me rephrase it. He looked old school.
Great.
And as I said, just because everybody wants the slim fit now doesn't mean every other person wants
yesterday,
it. So,
we had a tape supposed to be from a man, was his tailor, an old man.
Right.
He said the man brought the trousers and he didn't come back to measure or to fit. So he assumed that,
he was using his old height.
Yes, and he used it and everything else. And he used it. But good morning, guys. That was Prior's, what says Efie? That's a song, right? I hope that their comeback is real. And
I really hope so. I think it will be an amazing thing because we don't really have a lot of groups in the system right now. Wuta came back, great comeback. I mean, that was awesome. So you never know. And they are a talented group. So that is a good thing to
even though I thought that, their performance on the night was a bit inconsistent, panting for breath here and there. The coordination.
They didn't look like they had rehearsed
so it would take some
much
time for them to get back onto the game. Obviously, that's where people often fail. They feel immediately you come back, you still have your old talents and everything stays the same. But you have to still put in the practice you used to put in before. And especially when they're coming back in their older ages, of course, you're expecting things to have changed.
The older age, I saw an old video of Ajete Soa, at a party or so, and he still could bust his moves. I mean, back in the day, Ajete Soa won nearly every competition in Ghana and Africa. Every competition. Start playing the song and his winning.
Well, I think with him probably he was still rehearsing, he was still dancing, even though he was not like on the main stage. But I think with Prior, they've gone different ways to do different things, and
maybe we should ask Bright used to dance along with that.
But so you realize that Bright can't even move a bone.
He can't.
Because
he can't bust a bone.
Since when? Viewers, please send us any picture of Bright you've seen dancing on this show, or actually text the day, the dates, the time, everything.
We will be very grateful.
Clap for him.
Because we're very grateful.
But you see, some of us, because we are professionals, we do it at the appropriate.
Okay, we hear you.
So we should give you National Theatre.
Well, it will be too small because the crowd I'm going to pull.
Stadium.
Okay,
Independence Square. Okay, no.
So
we'll be looking forward to a throwback of Bright dancing. It is Throwback Thursday. Now, let's take a look at some of the issues that have been trending regarding news from health, education, business. We'll also find out what to expect by way of weather. Good morning. Welcome to Morning News on TV3. My name is Solis Rose Quarter. Don't forget that we're live on DSTV channel 279. Now the details. The Economic and Organized Crime Office, EOCO, has indicted former SSNIT boss Ernest Thompson and 4 others for willfully causing financial loss to the state over the procurement of the $72 million IT software. Now, board chairman of SSNIT, Dr. Kwame Addo-Kufuor, made this known at a news conference in Accra.
The news conference was to officially take delivery of the report conducted by the PricewaterhouseCoopers on the purchase of the IT software. It was to cover a period of 3 years. The team which conducted the review of SSNIT also focused on the reasons for purchasing an IT software. Some of the findings suggested that the $72 million used to purchase the IT software was overbloated. It indicated that the amount should have rather been less than $4 million. Currently, EOCO has cited 4 top management of staff, including the OB company, which supplied the software. The investigative body has since directed those implicated to the Attorney General for further probe.
The original OBS contract sum was $34 $0.0 million US. But at the time the project was completed, the contract sum had shot up to $66.8 million US and 36 million Ghana cedis. This means that at the end of the OBS project, an additional amount of 32 million US and 36 million Ghana cedis was paid to PBS. 5 suspects were arrested, and they are Ernest Thompson, former Director General of SNET, Mrs. Juliet Hassan-Akrama, CEO, PBS, John Hagan-Mensah, former OBS Project Manager, Caleb Kweku Afaglo, and Thomas Samson Owusu. However, 4 of them have been cautioned. These include Ernest Thompson, Mrs. Juliet Hassan-Akrama, John Hagan-Mensah, and Caleb Kweku Afaglo. After investigations, the office preferred charges of willfully causing financial loss to the state.
Director General of Senate, Dr. George Tenkrine, explained that other payments on the purchase of the IT software have been suspended.
Costs and a lot of bills that were scheduled to be paid, we didn't pay them yet. We decided that it should all be vetted and, if possible, renegotiated. And we've succeeded in doing some of that.
Board Chairman Dr. Dokufo pledged strong commitment to uphold the integrity of Senate to improve benefits of contributors.
We are not pushing anything under the carpet. But so far as criminal activity is concerned, YOCO has already dealt with that. So you have nothing to worry about.
Management and the board have assured pensioners of improved earnings in the coming months.
Meanwhile, SNET has implored the Controller and Accountant General to remove 7,844 ghost names from its payroll. Now, this, according to SNET, has saved the country an amount of 3.56 million cedis. Director General of SNET, George Tenkrine, spoke at a news conference in Accra.
The 7,844 names for the past 3 years have remained on the payroll of SNET as contributors. The names were, however, non-existent after investigations conducted by PricewaterhouseCoopers. The Controller and Accountant General has been asked by the management of SNET to delete the ghost names.
About 7,844 pensioners who are presumed not to be living, and that is saving us an amount of 3.56 million Ghana cedis a month, shaving it off the payroll. Now, if any of these pensioners that we have deactivated resurrect, meaning that maybe they were not able to come and re-authenticate themselves, then we have this money in escrow and we can make them whole again.
To further repose confidence in Senate, management said it has cut down on its overhead and administrative costs. The Director General, Dr. George Tenkrine, says he has cut down on traveling, which initially cost Senate 7.4 million cedis to 1.9 million cedis a year. He stated that the trust has halted the purchase of some items since 2017.
In 2016, for example, we found out that Christmas hampers alone cost this trust close to 1 million Ghana cedis. 2017, the board and management decided no hampers. So we didn't procure any hampers.
Of major concern to management of Senate is an amount of 19 million cedis which had been lost through non-prudent investment.
Our management accounts from last year, 2017, compared to 2016, show that in 2016, the fund lost value to the tune of about 18 to 19 million Ghana cedis. In 2017, our management accounts show that we added about 978 million Ghana cedis to the fund.
Management has agreed to properly review the operations of Senate to improve benefits of contributors.
Now, a political science lecturer at the University of Ghana, Dr. Hassan Wahab, says the fight against corruption can only be won if the instruments designed to fight the canker are enforced. Speaking on the sidelines at a political dialogue here in Accra, he expressed disappointment at the total disregard for laws which promote transparency and accountability.
Corruption has been identified as a key impediment to achieving development globally. Political science lecturer at the University of Ghana, Dr. Hassan Wahab, noted the fight against corruption in Ghana will be greatly advanced if sources of funding to political parties are made public.
We have laws in the Constitution and in various other instruments that bar, non-citizens from making political contributions. So the laws are there. What are we doing to enforce them? We have issues now about assets declaration. There is a law there. How many times do we check the assets of people who have just been elected into office? We don't do that.
Head of the Political Science Department, Dr. Boss Manasari, advocated the breakdown of the laws which currently exist to effectively monitor the fight against corruption. He cited the ongoing investigations of some ministers under the erstwhile Mahama administration as a failure of some of these laws.
This should have been we didn't have to wait for them to finish their term of office, and some of them left, I think 2016 December, and now it has now come to public knowledge that they collected to double salaries, etc. So it's a clear indication that the instruments have not been doing their work very well. That's why we don't have to trust individuals to do the right thing. Let's make sure we have institutions in place, and the institutions must compel.
The dialogue on the theme corruption and governance, impact and way out for women, children and youth was organized by the Gender Center for Empowering Development and the Political Science Department of the University of Ghana.
Now, the World Bank has cautioned African governments to pay more attention to the issue of rising public debt as it is gradually eating up fiscal stability and growth. Now, according to Chief Economist from the Africa region, Albert Zurfach, the number of countries classified as having higher risk of debt distress has increased from 8 in 2013 to 18 in 2018, of which Ghana is a part.
According to the World Bank, public debt relative to GDP keeps rising. There was a sharp increase of more than 20 percentage points in relative signs of debt in 2013, even though some of the debt-distressed countries have faster growth rates.
This time around, the structure of our debt has changed significantly. It's no longer concessional debt that is leading the way, but countries are now issuing more market and private sector debt. Countries are issuing sovereign debt on markets, and this has the consequence of increasing market-related risk and threatening our debt sustainability.
Higher debt burdens and the increasing exposure to market risks raise concerns about debt sustainability among African countries. An economist at the World Bank, Kwabena Kwache, describes Ghana's situation.
The World Bank and the IMF analysis of the sustainability of Ghana's debt is not going to be sustainable in the near future if we don't do anything about the fiscal deficit now. And I've also said that the fiscal deficit now they intend to reduce. So subject to what they intend to do now, if they're able to achieve it, then definitely the debt to GDP level will also go down.
According to Africa Pulse, a biannual analysis of the state of African economies conducted by the World Bank, African countries must focus more on managing its debts and debt policies.
There has to be a focus on fiscal adjustment and looking at both, consolidation in terms of expenditures and on the revenue side. A greater focus on prioritization of expenditure And within that, when it comes to public investment, a focus on the quality of managing public investment.
Sub-Saharan growth is projected to reach 3.1% in 2018 to an average 3.6% in 2019 to 2020. The World Bank is further asking African governments to fully embrace technology and leverage innovation to ensure quality, affordability and sustainable electricity. The African Pulse report of the World Bank is also pushing African economies to improve on the regulation of the electricity sector and better management of utilities, as African household electrification still remains the lowest in the world.
Now, the Bank of Ghana, in collaboration with the International Financial Corporation, is instituting measures to ensure that confidence in the financial sector is increased. With what it calls Financial Literacy and Public Awareness Campaign, the group is working at ensuring that access to credit for individuals and corporate institutions, as well as SMEs, is made simple.
The Financial Literacy and Awareness Campaign brought together all stakeholders in the financial sector. The aim is to ensure that access to credit is made easy for individuals, corporate institutions, as well as SMEs. Head of Financial Stability Department at the Bank of Ghana, Augustine Donko, emphasized the need for small businesses to easily access credit.
There are a lot of financial institutions who are in the business of lending credit. Interestingly, there are also a lot of people, business people, various categories, small scale, big scale, who need this credit. But unfortunately, there are certain impediments which usually prevent particularly the small scale from accessing this credit.
Credit referencing is key to ensuring that small businesses do not necessarily need collateral to access credit.
To basically check with the collateral ID to find out whether that particular asset is encumbered. If it's encumbered, you know what to do as a buyer.
Lead financial sector specialist Luz Maria Salamina intimates it is working towards ensuring that SMEs do not require collateral to access loans.
Some sort of asset that usually is not accepted by a bank traditionally as a collateral, because usually the banks get real estate as collateral, right? So we want them to be able to use their productive assets, their machinery, their cattle, their crops as collateral.
The exercise is therefore in partnership with the Credit Referencing Bureau to ensure that persons who access loans honor their financial obligations.
There should be a credit regime such that there should be some sanity within the credit market, because as you know, when the credit market is not well regulated and when there are no safeguards within the credit market, people tend to abuse it. And we see what is happening. Financial intermediaries like banks can collapse. And when institutions like this collapse, it has a ripple effect on the whole economy. And the role we play is basically to ensure that that kind of sanity actually is maintained within the credit market.
This campaign comes at a time that central banks around the world have adopted sound environmental and social practices as part of sustainable banking principles.
Now, away from that, a United Nations human rights expert has called on government to focus on redistribution of wealth and resources if it is serious about achieving the Sustainable Development Goal of eradicating extreme poverty. Professor Philip Alston maintained, although Ghana has made great strides in terms of democracy, its efforts at bridging the poverty gap and implementing social protection programs leave much to be desired. Professor Philip Alston was speaking at a news conference in Accra. In a report, the UN Special Rapporteur painted a bleak picture of Ghana's social protection interventions and a startling growth of inequality among its citizens. Key among findings of the report was the fact that although Ghana stands out in Africa as a champion of democracy, very little attention has been paid to programs that directly impact the lives of people living in poverty.
Ghanaian politicians are maybe world champions, I think, at creating memorable slogans, but an awful lot of faith has been pinned in the ability of some of these new programs. I admire the effort to try to stimulate the economy, to bring in more private capital and so on, but these programs are not designed and will not result in improving the situation of those living in poverty.
According to the report, 1 out of 12 Ghanaians wallows in extreme poverty. In Ghana, 40% of children are more likely to live in poverty than adults, which is a major increase from 15% in 1990. 38.2% of rural dwellers live in poverty as opposed to 10.4% in urban areas. 70 of the country's wealthiest persons own about 7% of the country's GDP, a situation which was a staggering reflection of the weak welfare interventions in the country. Professor Alston holds the view, although the Ghana Beyond Aid vision by government is admirable, the poor will be the biggest losers when foreign aid that primarily funds social protection programs ends.
With social protection programs in this country, apart from the very low amount of money spent on them, is that they are also insecure. A lot of them are heavily funded by foreign donors. Ghana Beyond Aid is a very worthy objective. But as much as the government tries to tell me this doesn't mean we don't want aid, what I hear from foreign donors is that they are taking the message.
The report essentially suggested some adjustments be made with regards to an effective taxation system. The elimination of illicit financial flow through corruption was also highlighted as a means of accruing revenue to pump into social protection programs. The Special Rapporteur's final report on his visit to Ghana will be presented to the upcoming session of the UN Human Rights Council in Geneva in June 2018. All right, and now to some international news. And U.S. President Donald Trump says that if his planned talks with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un are not fruitful, he will walk out. Now, at a joint news conference, he and Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe said maximum pressure must be maintained on North Korea over nuclear disarmament. Earlier, Mr. Trump confirmed that CIA Director Mike Pompeo had made a secret trip to North Korea to meet Mr. Kim. He said Mr. Pompeo had forged a good relationship with Mr. Kim, whom the U.S. president was last year calling the Little Rocket Man, and that the meeting had gone very smoothly. The visit marked the highest level contact between the U.S. and North Korea since 2000. Well, that's all for news this morning on New Day on TV3. My name is Solis Rose Quarter. Don't forget you can get more news updates on our website www.3news.com. There's more on New Day after this. Don't go away.
Welcome back. Let's start off with Ghanaian Times, which says Smith OBS software scandal. Thompson, 4 others charged for causing financial loss to the state. And 3 ex-ministers have been asked to report to CID. GRA clamps down on tax stamp defaulters. And then finally, AMA locks out 25 staff for lateness.
I'm happy the Smith issue is back.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I'm happy the Smith issue is back because about 2 weeks ago or so we mentioned it here. And we were wondering why it's gone silent all suddenly. Right. But I'm happy it's coming back, and I'm happy that they were checking the details. I hope that there wouldn't be the usual call for witch hunting and all those things. I hope that we bring finality to it, because eventually it is us, those who contributed to the scheme, who are being shortchanged. It is not the government. Right. It is us, those who have be mandatorily asked to contribute to it so that our future is made secure. It is us, our money that's been spent in this particular way. And even though there may be denials on every front, you remember our expose with exclusive with Professor Joshua Labi? Right. He said, well, he doesn't see anything wrong with what went on there. I'm sure that the people who've been mentioned, Dr. Thompson and Mr. Faglo and all of that, will also say they didn't see anything wrong with it. So let the investigative bodies run the full-scale investigations and let them conclude so that we know what our money has been used for, whether it's been worth a while, if there's a refund, somebody must pay for it. Let's collect the money. That's all.
Right.
But it's interesting to know. So, well, the court will need to decide. But the point I'm making here is that if a board chair of an organization isn't involved in this, how did it happen? For me, it beats my imagination that the board chair in the whole saga is not mentioned at all, and suggesting that he was nowhere near the decisions that were taken to acquire this software.
He said that the board doesn't give contracts.
Yes.
So
but
the board will be advised.
Get approved without their advice?
Well, I mean, he says the board will be advised by the consultants, and then they will also minute it, and then the MD or whoever it is would take the decision. So as far as he knows, they were not there in the thick of things. Yes.
But I mean, I get where Bright is also coming from, because it's an organization, and that's why there's a structure. These things raise questions of procurement processes, the people who are put
so
in
you
these
can't exonerate yourself, really.
and whether they do due diligence when they're giving these positions. So the question now starts off with, do people understand the positions they are asked to occupy? And rightly so, when you're asked to occupy a position, do you understand the mandate you've been given? Because, Johnny, for me, it still baffles me when they do these investigations and certain people are left out. I would feel that everybody, right from the top to the bottom, will be punished for it, because when you're asked to sit on a board to chair certain activities, you should be cautious and careful about every single thing, particularly when it's SSNIT. SSNIT takes monies from us. Taxpayers' monies go there. Contributions are sent there. And you're supposed to invest it and actually make returns. Yesterday, listening to the press release, I was even a bit disappointed, because I heard some of the losses they had incurred because of, putting monies in the wrong places, or not really understanding how to make profit for Ghana, or for we, the people who put our monies there. And that was worrying. And so when you sit at a board, or when you sit as an MD of a big institution like this, and you don't even understand procurement, just for the basis of being in that position, you would want to understudy and know certain basic things that go with procurement, so that you don't falter. If you don't understand anything, you pay a consultant to help you understand better, so that you make sure you're doing the right things at every point. Because SSNIT takes monies from us to be able to provide for us. At the end, the poor person's money, to be able to provide for you when you're going on pension. But now people go and they get pittances because they didn't invest our money well. And we can't just allow this to keep going on. Iyoko CID, no, Johnny, I'm still on it, because I'm talking about this issue because Iyoko and CID is chasing the former SHC, that's the State Housing Corporation, MDs. Same similar issues, contracts going on their hindsight. Exactly, this procurement. Maybe we just don't get this as a nation. Maybe we need
we have a national structure. Now we even have a ministry for procurement that's supposed to be advising. Okay, there's the procurement authority. In every single state institution that we have, there's supposed to be procurement officers who advise. So then, this whole conversation, beyond the board, beyond the management, must also include these procurement people. In all of these conversations, I don't find them in there. And that's worrying, because if I remember, when the matter came up, we're told that it was the procurement people's advice, based on their advice, which is why the contract moved on. So they had a part to play in it, because of course when the tender process starts and everything else, they will be actively involved, because there are procurement laws and regulations and everything else. So it's not about from top to bottom, really. It's about the structure and making it apply in every sense of the look. I feel the pain of those pensioners who go to the bank. I go to the banking hall sometimes. Somebody is come to take his pension, and it's 220 cedis for the whole month. And this person tells you, look, I have worked for all my life for institution A, and there's nothing to show for it. And sometimes they tell you they came so close to committing suicide. And that's the painful thing. I've always said that, look, a body like SSNIT, if SSNIT were a regular insurance company that was walking from institution to institution begging people, Brian, sign on to our policy, they wouldn't be using the money like the way you are using it. But they know that at the end of every month, the money is deducted and it's pushed into the account. Whether it's properly invested or not, it doesn't matter. It doesn't care. I have personally gone to the SSNIT headquarters before. I've seen their water reservoirs leaking, and we pay for it. It was leaking. I took a video of it. It was leaking. One of my colleagues, J. Jom Segbefia, had his wedding there, and I went to MC it, and it was overflowing. It was leaking, and nobody seemed to care. So water wasting away, our contributions will be used to pay for it, and then we'll be told that, well, we didn't make enough.
Well,
I don't know, but it's a really sad situation. Trust me.
Attorney General,
it's a really sad situation.
Her team will get to court, and the process to begin once investigations are over, and the 5 persons have been indicted for it.
It's a really sad situation.
The other story on the Ghanaian Times is about the GRA. We're told seizing some products that did not have the tax stamps, the stamps on them. When I saw the pictures yesterday, I was not too excited because I kept asking that why were officials, so the goods that were not stamped, GR officials were collecting them for what?
But that was confiscation.
Yes, but you see, the point here is that, okay, so shop A or shop B is selling the goods without the stamps. I mean, why don't you just close down the shop?
Right. But some other products have the stamp.
Yes, but I mean, the fact that he or she is selling the product, even one, without a stamp, means that he or she is going against the law.
Right.
Well, change your laws, right?
But I mean, the last time they were here, we understood that the first step will be to punish you. Right. I mean, there were levels. So until they close the shop, is maybe they've given you warnings severally and no
you're taking no action.
Exactly. Then maybe they escalate into closing down the shop completely. But I mean, I also side with you that until then, when will the effect of having this stamp really be felt? Because if it's just you come confiscate the few things that don't have the stamp and leave the rest that have the stamp so that I keep working, I think at some point then the reality of, okay, so far as I have a few, work will still go on, and so maybe the little that doesn't have the stamp
that's
can
the point.
still go on, I
think
agree
also,
with.
like, I mean, for every new policy to take full effect, it takes time.
Right.
Some people were in denial, but I think that they are now bowing to the dictates of the Ghana Revenue Authority. And until we change the regulations, which says that when you go there, what doesn't have the stamp, take it off the shelf. They can't do more than what they are permitted to do. And rightly so, as Bryce that looks, go to our bonded warehouses. Most of them are even full. They are full. I know people who sleep in warehouses, and the regulation says don't sleep in warehouses. I know some people who have private warehouses that are supposed to be used for just food, but when there's a lean season, somebody brings car tires, they can put it there. Somebody brings soap, they can put it there, and all of that. So it's a big concern. But guys, have you realized that Dumsor seems to have sneaked in?
Has it?
Yes. I mean,
interestingly, I haven't experienced
well,
it yet,
for the past 2 weeks, nearly every day my light goes off. I don't know if I'm the only person, but nearly every day my light goes off, at least for some hours. This night it went off for about 2-3 hours and came back on.
I wouldn't want to be the bad person, but let me ask: have you asked ECG what exactly is going on?
That's what I'm asking. I mean, because it's not just me. I mean, if you go on social media, you find people expressing similar sentiments that Dumsor seem to have sneaked in, and
I'm wondering why, if there's a problem,
nobody's telling us what the problem is.
Then you leave it to people to speculate. Like Johnny said, I think today is Thursday. Yes, on Tuesday night, for a period, which I'm unable to calculate because I was still in bed, the lights went off and came back. And so if there's a problem...
Even yesterday, I think that right from Dan's Bar, all through, I think a portion of Bubuashi was off because we drove through there and it was off. And so I don't know what it is. If ECG, maybe ECG hasn't noticed, so we're bringing it to their attention. But if Dumsor is sneaking in, tell us. If it's a technical fault, let's know, because
we need to know too.
we need, so we can plan our lives. We need to iron to come to work.
Anyway, so it's time for us to rant, and we're asking a big question because the United Kingdom has said it will support any Commonwealth state that plans to legalize LGBT. And the question is it coming in at the time where we're going to make the laws flexible to accommodate them? Because, of course, we go for funds from them.
But who said we don't have laws?
Theresa May says that, well, our colonial masters, they regret for creating anti-gay laws, so they will help us to
change it. Yeah.
No, but the point is that even when they came, there were laws against this practice.
Right.
Yes, I mean, if you go into, there's no.
Well, it wasn't written down law.
Yes,
At the time we were colonized.
our forefathers,
exactly.
Yeah, because I don't think there's any traditional culture or any of our people
in Africa that supports it. But now they want to take it out so we can have an accommodation for everybody. I don't know whose thinking it is, but if you ask me,
and you see, what I find interesting is
gobbly-dobbly.
When Theresa May made that statement, that okay, we are sorry for introducing those laws. We are ready to support you, African heads who were sitting in front of her, to deal with the laws and get them off your books so that people can be free. Our leaders who were there were clapping.
But
for
if
her.
you go and borrow money from them, what do you want them to do?
What were they clapping for?
Do you bite the hand that feeds you? Are you going to bite the hand that feeds you?
So if the hand is too big, you bite it.
Anyway, guys, let's join George on the streets of Accra as you rant.
British Prime Minister Theresa May, on behalf of the UK, has proposed that it will support any member of the Commonwealth that plans to legalize homosexuality in its country. And for her, she regrets the past that criminalized same-sex relations in its former colonies. And so the question is, do you see that time coming where, these laws will be flexible to encourage LGBT in the country? This is Daily Rant. Let's keep talking.
You can see that most of the negativities come from the Western world, and then they are trying to confuse us as a Christian country. And our laws, the laws of this country get its root from the Bible. You can, if you trace the laws, you can see that even in the Bible, God destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah. And then the purpose of man's womanhood and manhood is for procreation. I don't see the reason why somebody, because of aid, because we take our plates to you for food, you want us to go against our maker. If we do that, then it means that we are totally going to hell.
It's sad. First and foremost, it's very sad to hear that a woman could make such a comment. A man should have said it. A woman, yes, if a man had said it, in a way, it's a bit normal. We say a man wants another man, maybe he has feelings for another man or something like that.
LGBT involves lesbians as well, so woman saying it.
Wait, somebody gave birth to that woman, and now the woman is old, has given birth, and now issuing order. That, and you know what, we can sit here and discuss this whole thing and say we don't want it, but some of our leaders, those in power, will pass behind bars and go and because of something little, small they will get.
Are you a leader? How do you know? It's like you know more than I do.
No, it's not a matter. We are in this country and we follow our news and we know what's going on.
Well, I think I'm looking forward to it because I'm looking forward to it. Because on a real look, enough of the play, enough of the funny things and drama going on in the country. We are over-pampering these guys. Whoever they are and whoever we are talking about.
Which guys?
Because there are people
guys?
Listen, the people whom we are over-pampering are the people who are making noise that it should be legalized. And then listen to them. When it's being legalized, how does it concern you? It's the mindset of the people.
You see
I'm not saying.
I'm not being hypocrite. Trust me, there's a survey by South African researchers. Close to 3,000, 4,000 people here.
In Ghana. And where are they?
They are here, but they are saying
it's not legalized.
No, they are saying their lives are under risk. They can't come out because it's like people want to even kill them. So they are voicing out their concerns.
So now it's hindering their activities, right? Because they fear if they come out, people will hurt them or people will hunt them. You understand?
They've got rights. These are people who have rights.
Because it has not been legalized.
Yeah, okay.
And then we are really worrying ourselves in the country with this petty issue. When there are many developments, it's a petty issue. Let me tell you why it's a petty issue. It's a petty issue because it's the mindset of the people. You, as you are there.
So it's the mind that is a gay.
If nobody comes to propose to you that he is a gay, and you don't allow yourself, Would gayism concern you? It won't. And two,
let me say that. You see, gayism and lesbianism is a root of all evil, because let me say that in the Bible, the people were killed in practicing that. Yeah. And today, listen, let me tell you, if we allow them, we give them an inch today, it will
they're humans like you are.
Yeah, they are human beings. But you know, human beings, people who were killed in the prehistoric time were killed. Were they not having rights? It is abomination to human society.
Because it has not been legalized. The number of people who are practicing it secretly are greater than the people who practice it when they even legalize it.
What happens to it if we happen to legalize this?
If you legalize it won't concern you.
I want to listen to your experience. I have my personal experience. You know, when I completed the SHS, you know, by then we're so, you know, we're struggling, trying to make money and all that. I was home when a friend of mine called me. Charlie, a friend says he's got himself a house, a 3-bedroom house, so he needs somebody to live with. Quickly, we jumped to the house, and when we got there, it was this well-built man, you know. Hi, from his introduction, I suspected something. Then this guy started educating us about this whole gayism, something that in Ghana, you know, people look down on this thing, but this thing is not, there's nothing so bad about this. Look, my white man got me this house, you know, fully furnished, and truly fully furnished. All the 3 rooms we entered, everything is in the room.
Everything, TV.
What are you talking about? Air conditioning stuff from the kitchen to everywhere. And this guy is willing to pay everything of ours. He's willing to, you know, accommodate us in the house. He's willing to...
And what does he want in return? Like, what do you want?
Ask yourself, to connect us. You understand? Now that he has a guy, a white guy who is sponsoring him,
do you know something?
He was willing to sponsor us. You know, give us equally white guys to...
George,
you understand?
You know what?
You have made a point.
You see, money is the root of all evil.
Yeah.
And if you look at this, you know that everybody who is practicing this kind of thing, it's like you don't know where they are having money. You understand? So if today it is legalized, tomorrow you see your children will also say that because they don't have money, they will be near this.
Let me ask you a question. Do you smoke cigarettes?
I don't smoke.
But people smoke in Ghana.
Yeah.
How does it affect you?
It's passive. You'll be a passive smoker.
You'll be a passive smoker. Now, what mindset do you have about it? Did you make up your mind to smoke?
I don't.
He didn't make his mind, but
you did it.
It affected him.
And two, get like the gayism. We all. I'm not a gay, but on a real, the gayism we are all fighting and spending our time with all our efforts when there are a whole lot of things that we could do.
Which is the whole lot of things.
Look, we
when
need
our children are going to suffer from
this. We need development. We shouldn't. Look, if we have to fight gayism, if the president has to fight gayism, he can take 10 years to fight gayism and he won't finish.
Look at this.
So there are a whole lot of things.
If I ask you to do something for me, look at this. If I ask you to do something for me and you're unable to do it, I'll become angry. Look at this. UK saying they will support, Commonwealth members. Do you think if we don't, comply, it will translate into bad ties between us and UK?
Never.
No,
never.
It won't.
And if we agree, if we are to agree, look, this money they are talking about will go to just a few people.
Without UK, do you think we can't live?
We can live
because I know that I
can live without foreign assistance.
Without everybody.
The reason is that even Africa. Listen, why are you saying that? We can live. You understand?
So my point is that you see everybody is crying that why the need to legalize gayism and all that. My point is that we are over pampering these people.
The
time is coming and it will happen. To the end of the world, everything would spread to everywhere, and it's in the Bible. But we are worrying ourselves over certain things for some people who would suffer when we won't suffer if we have the mindset. Do you get where I'm coming from?
It's the sign of the end time.
Yes, you are coming from Bolegatanga. Look, you are thinking about yourself. You are thinking about yourself. You are not thinking about your children.
There are people who are practicing the thing, so it would also be happy about it.
But wait, who can come out? Can I sit here and say, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Uncle Kobe and I am a proud gay? Like you will see tomorrow in my house.
I know someone who has come out.
Like you see tomorrow in my house.
Let me come out with an example.
Yeah.
Watch. They say we shouldn't smoke weed. Weed, marijuana. Even though marijuana is even important than cigarette.
Tobacco, yeah.
But they've criminalized marijuana and they allow tobacco. Do you know why? Because they want to make money. they want to silence the one that we have and bring the white people's tobacco for us to, because tobacco, they've added chemical. Okay. And people are, you see, they are selling cancer to us, but we allow them to sell cancer whilst we relegate our own marijuana. So you see, the reason is that marijuana is like it's criminalized. It's criminalized. But is it people are people not smoking it? People are smoking. People are smoking because it cannot be controlled fully. Okay. That is how gayism and lesbianism is. It is something that we cannot.
Not be marijuana. It's Peter Joyner. You know, see, I had to tell you that thing. See, on a real, we as a country, we must not legalize gayism. This is the case where you have a son in the area who smokes, and then you are crying for him for the effects. And then you have advised him on any way, counseled him, taking him to places like an armed robber. And then you are crying for him when you've done everything possible for him to change, and he can't. Just allow him to be arrested. Just let the thing function on him. When he sees the effects, he will stop.
Mosifo Ameni is a legal practitioner and anti-gay campaigner. And for him, government should come out on what, Theresa May has said. But we already know the stance of the, president. He's not really emphatic about it. He's not. What is he going to? What new are we going to hear? Like, what are we going to?
I'm sure. Let me start. Let me say frantically that in the Bible, that our laws have its root from what? The Bible. And therefore, if today the pastors do not stand up, people who are teaching us the moral standards, and then the Bible and the Constitution are our moral standards. If today we should allow these people because we take our plate to them for food and we allow them, then it means that our future will be doomed.
Since you made mention of pastors, I think we are calling on Obinim to use the banner. He should use the banner.
But what sticker?
No, the sticker is too small. If the sticker is making landlords forgive tenants, then I think the banner will make the press. See, he should put the banner around any plane.
I am saying no. Ghana, no.
We are calling on pastors. Obinim, we are calling on you to use the banner.
The big pastors.
He should print a banner. He should print a banner and use the stickers on the president.
Citizens will stand up.
Well, do you see the time coming where we'll legalize homosexuality in Ghana? Theresa May has come out to say it will support Commonwealth countries that want to do that. Let's know what you think about this.
She's the devil.
To our social media platforms.
She wants to kill us.
Facebook,
she wants to destroy our future.
On Twitter,
Ghana is a Christian country.
Thanks for watching.
And everybody out there.
This is what it feels like.
This morning says that Senate boss charged over $72 million scandal. His photograph is here. Mr. Ernest Thompson. NDC begs Nana to drop double salary case. The Heritage says Invincible Forces seized UNDP flat at cantonment. Contractor on site assaulted. Daily Graphic Yoko indict former SNIT DG and 3 others. They are charged with causing financial loss. That's the story. And then here on the Daily Graphic, pay us 700 million Ghana cedis debt to deal with filth. That's ESPA telling government, sanitation people talking there. That SNIT story is almost captured by every newspaper here. The Times, the Statesman, and several others. The Business Finder, however, says that invest efficiently to service debts. World Bank urges African leaders, and growth in credit extension positive. The Independent has a story causing financial loss. Who is to blame? Akufo-Addo or Mahama? 179 buses left to rot at the Chimota terminal. The buses are here. The green buses, the Ayalolo buses are here. My guest to do the talking, government spokesperson on infrastructure, Richard Asante-Yeboah, is here. Good morning.
Good morning. Bryce.
Hope you're doing great.
Oh, by good grace. Yeah,
thanks so much for your time with us this morning. As a member of the NPP and a member of the NDC from the Tolan constituency, Seydou Fita is also here. Good morning.
Good morning, Bryce.
Hope you're doing great.
Yes, by His grace.
Hope your constituency is also fine.
Yes, we're just pushing.
Great. Now, let's start our conversation this morning. That's a very interesting story here. On the Daily Guide has a story. NDC begs Nana to drop a double salary case. And if you take a look at the Today newspaper, the same story is captured on page 12, where it says that Haruna begs for MPs. Now, Majority Leader Osechi Mensah-Bonsu has alleged that his compatriot, the Minority Leader, had spoken to the President to intervene in the double salary allegations. According to him, Haruna Iddrisu was afraid the matter might dent the reputation of Parliament if the criminal proceedings currently underway should continue. He said that the leader, that's the Minority Leader, has spoken to the President that some intervention must be done in order to save the image of Parliament. And when asked further by the interviewer about what Haruna Iddrisu wanted from the President, the Majority Leader said, yes, I can confess to this. When again asked to be more specific, Mr. Osechi Mensah-Bonsu answered that these things would dent and further inflate the mortal wound on Parliament. He cited the arrest of a member of the House some time ago for drug-related offences and said that that dented Parliament's image, and so the issue to work at that. Now, the Daily Guide story, trying to also take a quick look at that one, says that although they go about claiming that the NPP is witch hunting them politically, some big works of the NDC have been caught begging President Akufo-Addo to drop the double salary case against their members of Parliament and former ministers. So Chief Mensah-Bonsu threw the bombshell on Tuesday when he spoke to some media houses. That's the story. Right. Seydou, let me start the conversation with you this morning. Now, this issue is in the hands of the CID. Some members of Parliament have already appeared before the department, and investigations are ongoing. Do you think that dropping it or perhaps investigating to get to the bottom of it is the way to go? Which way do we go?
Good morning to you. Good morning to our church listeners, to my good friend Rich, and to members of the NDC, especially those in the Toulon constituency. This is an issue that I think that we all have to sit with fingers crossed, expecting the CID to come out with a good report on what has happened in the past. You see, I have read a lot of newspapers, coming out with different numbers, speculating as to who took money and how much the person took. We woke up to hear news that 25 Article 71 office holders under John Dramani Mahama government were taking double salary, and in the process, they charged the CID to investigate the matter and come out with the facts of the matter. And subsequently, the Daily Guide, which is a pro-MPP newspaper, came out to also report that 22 Article 71 office holders were responsible in taking double salaries, which completely contradicts the statement made by the government that 25 Article 71 office holders, and Daily Guide is coming with 22. So which one are we to trust? Secondly,
the Daily Guide is not government mouthpiece.
It is owned by the national chairman of the NPP, and obviously, he can't be ignorant about issues happening in government now.
He doesn't sit on. So he doesn't enter the news.
Yes. Who told the owners of this platform?
Richard, Richard, please don't.
Yes, be comfortable, please. Please.
Don't come in.
You see,
go on.
and
Daily Guide doesn't edit
and Daily Guide Daily Guide has failed completely to give us the full list of the Article 71 office holders who in the past has taken double salaries from the controller. And you see, the government, when there's a government in power, MPs takes their allowances from Parliament, and then as ministers, they take their salaries from controller or an account. And their salaries are determined by a presidential emoluments committee that is supposed to be set up by the president. And this has been a practice since 1993. And when His Excellency John Dramani Mahama was in power, they set up the committee, and the committee determined and finalized its work as to how much a minister or Article 71 office holder should take, which ended on November 2016, a month to the general elections. So after the elections, the committee realized that some of the Article 71 office holders were overpaid. Overpaying us in the sense of, right, if you are an Article 71 office holder, and I am one, and they gave you 200 Ghana cedis, that's an example, and they pay me 500. It means I am overpaid. I am paid more than you. But when the emolument committee came out with their report or their finality as to how much Article 71 office holders should take, they realized that we're all supposed to be taking 500 Ghana cedis each. But then I was paid 500 earlier, but you were paid 200. So the government stand to owe you your 300 Ghana cedis arrears. So the government have to make up the 300 Ghana cedis and pay you up. So there was nobody anywhere who took more than the desired amount that the emoluments committee brought out later.
Is it the case
and
that
so,
some people who have been mentioned are reported to have conceded that they indeed took double salary, and that some were told even had double accounts for the two salaries as MPs and ministers? Is this something that has come to the attention of the minority?
I haven't heard any former minister admitting that he has received double salaries from different accounts. I've not heard that. This is new to me, and we are yet to see evidence of that showing. And this is not the first time. And when President Mills came in 2009, he formed the Chinnerihisi Committee, you remember? And they were to work on the emoluments of Article 71 office holders. And it was later realized that appointees under former President Kufuor also had that anomalies in their allowances. And those who were owed by the government were topped up. So those who took the exact amount of money they were supposed to take, they had to go with it. So the recommendation is that governments who come in quickly have to set up these committees to work on the allowances of Article 71 office holders before we come up with all this, you know.
If you say that you have not heard about or seen or evidence of agreeing that some took double salaries, why would the minority leader then ask the president to intervene for what?
You are talking about a statement coming from the majority leader.
Okay.
Obviously, you don't expect him to come out and say that, I mean, the minority leaders have not taken anything from the government. Remember, there has been an issue on the table concerning this agreement that is signed by government between the US and our government. And the minority has been so vociferous and strong on those issues. And to cow them or to intimidate them, these are the issues they have to bring on board to make sure they push them back to their seats. I mean, why should we take something that is coming from Osei Mensah Bonsu as coming from the angels? Let's wait and listen to the minority leader too, because he's also in the country. And I am sure if journalists reach up to him, he'll be able to state his position. But if not until then, we can't take what Osei Mensah Bonsu is bringing out for us to consume.
I'm grateful, Seydou. Now, Richard, should the president step in this, as we're being told by the majority leader? That the minority that said the president should intervene?
Thank you very much, Brighton. I think good morning to your team and your amazing viewers out there. I don't think the President of the Republic, His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, or any politician for that matter, should step in this and stall the process. I think we need to understand that the only way we can curb crime and also protect the public space is to allow independent bodies to do their investigation. And I think that we ought to allow the police CID to go ahead and do their investigation. Because you see, over the period, we've had all manner of utterances, particularly from our brothers in the NDC, lambasting the CID and also talking down to these hard-working men and women within in the uniform. And I think that we need to desist from these things. I remember when Mr. Kokwedo, who was arrested and freed by the police administration in the course of the investigation of his utterances and his ugly outburst, he had the opportunity to say that the police did their job professionally. This is Mr. Kokwedo who's speaking. And I want to congratulate them, the CID boss, DCOP, Mami Tiwa and her people. At least Ghana is working again. This is a telling comment from the Deputy General Secretary of NDC, giving you an impression that indeed we have a professional police force. So we need to allow them to go ahead and do the investigation. The police cannot equally sit in there and say, once they are in the investigation, we are throwing you into jail. They'll process you before court if you are found culpable. So we need to allow that process to go on. Now back to your question. should the president step in? And I said no. If you are going to entertain that, then if somebody goes to steal a plantain, the president would have to be compelled to step in. If somebody goes to steal goat, the president would have to go and step in. Then how do you control crime? We ought not to allow that to happen. These people, it is an allegation. And indeed, there are evidence to some of the things that we are talking about. You rightly mentioned one information to this, my brother, that people have separate accounts. Indeed, it has come to the realization.
Yeah,
of course.
Except you can confirm.
And I'm also aware that people even had different signatures to the various accounts.
So you are aware you have that.
Of course. And so it tells you that indeed people were up to some level of mischief. Because why do you have separate accounts for MP salary and that for your salary as a minister of state? When the constitution clearly states that once you're a minister, you stick to that. If you're a member of parliament, you stick to that. You see, what usually happens is that, and I remember Honorable Oseche Mensah-Bonsu gave you an information as to what happened during his tenure as a minister during the President Kufuor's era. When the party hesitated, when in the course of the President Kufuor's era, he realized that he was being paid from these two accounts. So he wrote a letter to them that, you know what, please stop this payment because I'm not entitled to it. Let me stick to this. People have taken this over the years. And now a new government is in and investigations are unfolding. And now they are throwing all manner of tantrums to the Ghanaian populace. And that is one of the things that we need to stop. I tell you, as far back as 1996, as we speak, there are members of parliament from 1996 parliament who are in court, remember, still fighting for their ex gratia. So members of parliament can fight for their ex gratia, they will fight for their entitlement. So how come if they overpaid, the good people of this country cannot demand that same ought to return to the state coffers? We are crying for roads, we are crying for schools, we are crying for a good number of infrastructures across the country, water and all those things. So if these monies are available to the state, I'm sure some of these things, government can meet its obligation to the people. So I'm telling you that government ought to do everything humanly possible to make sure that we retrieve these monies. And that ought to be done. My brother, there's another aspect that we need to understand. When you have separate accounts and money is being paid into those accounts, and you go out there monthly to cash these monies, you do not pinch yourself, question yourself, am I entitled to this? Because any funds that come from the government, reasons for same is indicated. You'll be told this is a salary. So when in your statement, you are recording two different separate salaries, and you are signing with two different signatures, and you have separate accounts, it didn't occur to you that you are robbing the state.
With some argument that they were not paid salaries, but they were paid on account, were they not counter what you're...
No. When you receive a statement, it will be indicated as a salary. See, the reason when you talk about being paid on account means that at the period you are being paid those salaries, the actuals as unknown. Exactly. So in the roundup, but if there are different set of accounts where one amount is coming from Parliament and one is coming from the executive chest, you should know that indeed there's something wrong, because the point is that the constitution mandates every government to appoint majority of its ministers from Parliament. So it stands to reason that at every given time, the chunk of our ministers will be coming from Parliament. So if we are living in that scenario, and you are a member of Parliament, and you know that the parliamentary service has its own arrangement through which people are paid, and you are receiving salary from Parliament, and you double as a minister, and you are also receiving salary from the government, you ought to stop one of them. You don't go on and receive them, and when you are being questioned, you go about trying to lambast the police administration, raining insults and insinuations on people with hard-won reputations, and trying to lambast them. You ought not to do that.
Let's wrap up on this one.
Let me just quickly. Does this force belief from my brother that once an individual entrepreneur has shares in a media outlet, they control the information flow? I tell you, no. As you speak, we have Mr. Atua or the Howard Brothers
having shares in a lot of media outlets in the country, do they control what comes out of that?
Well,
particularly Radio God knows this.
I'm not
the
too sure.
Do you remember what happened? You know Mr. Kwabedu of the former finance minister and the NDC. He controls a good number of media outlets. Does he control the information flow from that place? Of some of and all these NDC people who have media outlets. So let's discuss the issues and bring out the truth rather than trying to muddy the waters and link people to when people are doing their work professionally. Right? Don't you do a professional work here?
Let me ask you.
Are you being controlled by your owners?
Let me ask you this. Now, some of us also argue that this is simply a case of employer-employee issues, and that if things have gone wrong in the payment of these, it could have been resolved through the employer writing to these persons. Is that a legitimate thing?
When it is established that individuals have gone ahead to open different separate accounts and taking these monies, when it's established that people use 2 different signatures for the same one person, it means that the person purpose in their hearts.
Okay.
And there's a conscious effort and a deliberate attempt to dupe the state. And that's a fact.
Okay.
If those things are established, and we are even hearing that there are others who took even to double ex gratia. He took ex gratia as a member of parliament and ex gratia as a minister of state. You can't do this to the state.
Okay, I'm grateful. Richard. Quickly come in, let's move on.
Let me come in here. You see, my good friend is confusing the whole issue. First of all, members of parliament are paid by parliamentary services.
I think he alluded to that.
And then,
so no, he didn't. Confused when I mentioned that.
Oh, please.
You have been told
let me land.
Okay,
please let me land.
Allow
me to land. I was just quiet when you were talking. And 2, ministers takes their allowances from the office of the president. I mean, which accounts is he talking about? You were trying to put him on the right line. And he was just trying to throw that in the eyes of people.
There were reports that some people had opened two
it is not true.
Accounts.
It is not true.
The monies are not paid.
It is not true.
They are paid into accounts.
Please. People are not opening 2 accounts to receive monies from the government. That is not true.
So you are
and you must admit to that. I mean, why? Do you have any evidence to that effect? You don't just sit and throw that into the eyes of the people. And secondly, with the issue of the majority leader, you see, leaders of parliament have the privilege to meet the president at any time. And you know this for a fact.
Right.
The majority leader today, when he was minority leader under John Dramani Mahama government, he came out on Joy News yesterday to state that severally he has met the former president John Dramani Mahama. An issue that they discussed remained between the 2 of them and forever. Okay? And he alluded to the fact that the minority leader, by convention, has also met President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. But he cannot say as to whether they discuss the issues of double salaries or what have you. And so the media that came out to throw the stories out that the majority leader said that the minority leader came to beg on behalf of the minority.
What he said.
Please wait. Please wait. You see, these are the same people who came out and said 25 Article 71 office holders took double salaries and later came with 22. Which credibility do you have to push us to
link media reportage to that of government
anyway,
officials?
we are discussing.
The newspapers come out with their headlines
and again, whatever they want. And these are people who, for instance, we have had, evidence of current ministers who have taken double allowances, and we have the full list of 67 of them. So and I challenge you, we have the names. We have the names. If the opportunity is offered, I'll mention the names from 1 to 67. I want you to mention here, I challenge you, to mention the 25 Article 71 holders who took double salaries from the government.
Have been published.
Furthermore, where? Show me us.
Well,
you don't just do propaganda with any issue. Furthermore,
but we are aware some have reported to the CID. Okay, quickly.
The CID again came out to drop 18 names, not only to 18, out of the 25 lists they brought out, and stated that they were mistakes. I mean, come on. We can't be doing this to ourselves. We have serious issues that the government has committed. I mean, these mistakes of signing a deal with the United States of America. These are issues we should be discussing. You don't come to confuse people by reports that you have no evidence about.
I'm grateful.
I mean, you have no evidence.
Let's move on to one other issue quite want to deal with. This story broke out yesterday. Daily Graphic said EOCO indicts former SSNIT DG, 3 others charged with causing financial loss to the state. Now, the story is suggesting by the Daily Graphic says that EOCO has charged 4 persons, including a former DG of SSNIT, Mr. Ernest Thompson, for willfully causing financial loss to the state. They are said to have questions to answer in connection with an information technology project, the operational business suit, which cost the SSNIT $72 million. It mentions others as Mrs. Juliet Hassana Kramer, Chief Executive Officer of Perfect Business Solutions System, a private IT firm, Mr. John Hagan Mensah, a former OBS project manager of SSNIT, and Mr. Kaliba Faglo, a former general manager in charge of MIS at SSNIT. The board chair of SSNIT read a report sent to SSNIT by EOCO on the latest investigations into the OBS project. Meanwhile, Mr. Thompson has denied knowledge of any audit report indicting him and 3 others for causing financial loss to the state. According to him, neither he nor his lawyer was aware of the charges being leveled against him. Richard, this is where we are. This story was in the media yesterday. Dr. Adukufo and his team did the announcement. We're getting somewhere with the SSNIT issue.
I think so, and I think kudos to the media for raising questions every now and then regarding this particular matter and waking the nation up on this subject matter. Remember, these issues broke up a couple of months ago, and it was the desire of most Ghanaians to see this coming to a reasonable fruition where we can know the outcome so that these people would have their day in court. Because indeed, this remains an investigative report, and they are doing the needful by processing them before the court, so at least they can also have the opportunity to answer to the various counts that will be leveled against them. I think we need to understand and appreciate that the President of the Republic, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, has shown clearly to the good people of this country that, you know what, he's not going to countenance the usual system of plain thievery. When it happens, then we call it corruption. We try to beautify it when people steal money from the state, when people milk from the state, when people have turned themselves into money-sucking vampires and literally running the state coffers empty. And when it occurs, we try to tag with a fanciful name and call them, these are corrupt officials. Beyond that, these are plain thievery. And I pray that people ought to be given the needed platform and the best platform, that is the court, to answer questions to that. And I do believe in the justices, and I believe in the courts, and I believe in our legal regime, and I believe that these individuals, those who are culpable, will be dealt with according to law. Because, my brother, the monies that we are talking about, at first we are looking in somewhere in the ranges of 77 million cedis or dollars thereabout. Now we are being told that it's hovering around 145 million. That's a staggering amount. We know the number of boreholes this could provide for our brothers up north. We know the number of factories that we could put up if these monies are available. We know the number of hospitals that we can construct and the number of pregnant women we can save. We know the number of potholes and manholes that we have on certain parts of our country and roads that we can fill up. We know the number of housing infrastructure we can provide for security and the general public, the street lighting system, and all the things that we continue to cry and ask for government to provide same. And I do believe that it is time for us to make politicians and civil servants or any individual, or even private individual who is caught in this web accountable to the state. Because the next thing, the state ought to be supreme. Because at the end of the day, like I cited an example, if somebody is caught stealing plantain from a farm or even a maize, we see the processes through which individuals are rushed through and they are thrown into jail. But when politician goes ahead and do same, and we have all manner of feet-dragging attitude from a politician to trying to prosecute them. This is a president who has shown clearness of indication that he's ready to fight this. One thing that is amazing for me and is quite refreshing is the fact that I've been on other venues and other platforms for my brothers and others who think that even beyond
the state institution, regular state institution that we've known over the period, they can equally go to the new institution and the new kid on the block who's been tasked to fight corruption across the divide. That is the special prosecutor. So if you think even in the current administration you have issues, you can petition him. And some of us have the strongest of belief in Mr. Martin Amido and his team, that they will do the needful. And I believe that Attorney General, Madam Gloria Akufu, my brother Odami Kanka and Joseph, all these amazing lawyers will be out there and they'll do, then the other state prosecutors will do the needful and make sure that people are arraigned before the court. So the investigative bodies, we're also encouraging them to fast track every process, because the point is that the moment people start losing hope in the Ghanaian, in the state institution, losing hope in the police administration and politicians, even paying taxes become an issue. But who will pay taxes for people to go and squander?
You wrap up, should it be worrying that Mr. Ernest Thompson is saying that neither he nor his lawyer is aware of any audit report indicting him, as told by the Daily Graphic?
The beauty of democracy is that if you think you are not aware of anything, you can write and solicit for same. You can be given same copies. I mean, sometimes I know a lot of people who deny blatantly in public, when indeed they've known all the process over the period. How long haven't we known that there was investigation in this Senate debacle? We've known it, right? You are outsider as a journalist. You've known over the period that there has been investigation. There were counter accusation and accusation all back and front. It tells you that this government will not allow anybody take this nation to ransom.
I'm grateful.
People will not be allowed to work with the public funds without being asked to account. And this is what is going to happen. And I trust the President of the Republic, His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, the team of ministers that he's appointed, the Vice President, the Economic Minister, to also help control some of these things.
I'm grateful, Richard. Sedu, finally, the report is out. The Yoko says that the DG and 3 others will need to answer some questions. Perhaps it would take us to understanding what actually went into how much we paid for this software.
I think that with this issue, which is going under investigation, I expect that as responsible citizens, we have to wait for the courts to prosecute someone before we call such a person a criminal. I am sad that up-and-coming politicians like us can sit on national television and begin calling people thieves when the courts are yet to prosecute those people. And in fact, that has been the music of the NPP, to use the media, to use social media to prosecute people when they are yet to be prosecuted by the courts of the country. I mean, when I read this news that Thompson and 4 others charged, I was laughing. Yoko doesn't have the authority to charge anyone for wrongdoing. They have no power. It is an investigative body. Let's learn about it. It has no power to charge anyone.
According to...
Oh, go and read. We have vision and mission statements of organizations that we have in this country. Go and read. And you would know. They have no power to charge anyone. Theirs is to investigate on matters and forward it to prosecutional powers that be. To prosecute people.
So they cannot prefer charges against
They can't prefer charges. And people are consuming this. And you see, hypocritically, he mentioned about matters that we come to defend and monies that could have been used to dig boreholes for the people in the northern region. The boss stolen monies under their government could have been used to build boreholes in Tolon constituency.
But you just...
The Maslow, he mentioned about boreholes.
You just
the
said
Maslow,
you're just referring to a stolen money. That is an allegation.
You see,
Sedu, it is an allegation.
They came out...
You just told us that people are pronounced guilty by the media, okay? And you just did say that it is stolen money. In fact, it is an allegation, and it is not. I'm drawing your attention to it.
Can I continue?
Yeah, but I'm drawing your attention to it.
I take it
that
from you.
You don't need to. Yes.
I take it from you.
Right.
I take it from you. The alleged stolen money at Bost
all right, you can go ahead.
could have been used to construct boreholes in Tolon constituency. The alleged Maslow money, stolen money, could have been used to dig boreholes in Nyankpala, in my constituency. The alleged Metro Mass money, that is stolen even 2-3 days ago, where one Lawal was going to be bribed with 40,000 Ghana cedis, could have been used to construct boreholes in Jizagunda in the Tolon constituency. The 50 million money they used and went to their Congress, it could have been used to construct boreholes. You can't sit down and just pick and choose one to say that if this money was there, they could have used it for this. Look, let's wait for Ernest Sampson is not an ignorant person. This is somebody who has been an administrator with long-standing experience. When issues like this come out, the bodies are there, the courts are there, they will invite him to the court. IOCO has presented their report. And I think that it is on which basis that the board yesterday came out to hold a press conference. They will forward it to court, and the court will do the needful. If the man is wrong, then they go ahead and prosecute him. If he has done nothing wrong, then the NPP will be shamed again. You see, when they were coming, and indeed, when you read the paper, they talked about causing financial loss to the states and not corruption. And Bright, you know clearly, there's a clear distinction between causing financial loss to the state and corruption. You can't bundle all and come out and say some people were stealing money and they could have used it to dig boreholes for which other people. Please, let's be honest with ourselves and realize that, look, this government is failing and they are trying to use all manner of issues to cover up their face for the failure. And look, come 2020, that is when they will learn a bitter lesson and understand that you can only use propaganda to come to power, but you can't use it to government people.
You do not think that IOCO as a state institution can go into an investigation and recommend certain charges against the persons?
You can recommend, but you can't charge. Right? You know the distinction between recommendation of charges and charging people. Okay. Somebody have to take the responsibility of charging, just like in the courts. The lawyers will make their cases, and the judges will charge them. And he talked about the issue of opportunity availing itself to us for us to send petitions to the special prosecutor. Someone who does not even have an office.
Oh, sure.
But Martin Amidu came out and said his office is not yet finished. And when we're talking about office, it's not about tables and chairs. Right? It's about the lawyers. The special prosecutor office, he's not going to run it all alone. He's going to run the office with lawyers. He's not going to work there alone. And he is going to work with secretaries. And indeed, the man is using his own private vehicle currently to run the office.
All right.
Somebody who doesn't even have a comfortable place to sit and read even documents.
Richard,
you're talking about an opportunity given to us to send petitions to him.
I'm grateful. Let's elevate the debate. I think this is, I mean, these are just tantrums that we need to throw away to the dustbin. It is not true that Mr. Amidu has no office. Do you understand me? It's not true.
He came out to
Mr. Amidu has had...
He himself said his office is not ready.
He said it. I am not saying it.
It's different from not... That was when? It's different from... It's different
has he come back to say has he come back to say it is ready?
Richard speaks is government spokesperson on infrastructure, so maybe he's aware that today...
This man said, this man who talked about the factory in central region where there's no brick, he said they were building it. You want me to trust him? It's funny.
I think Richard, please... Let's elevate the debate. But the point is that Mr. Amidu did not say that he did not have an office. What he said was that he wasn't ready because they were finishing the place up for him and his team. They were equally making sure that all the other members that he was going to work with are together. It doesn't, when people say my office is not ready, it doesn't mean that there's no office structure and all those things.
All right.
They talk about Mr. Amidu using his own car. Mr. Amidu has been somebody, he is somebody that you can call a true socialist. Not these champagne popping socialists that we have within the NDC, who all love themselves and more than the populace. Let me tell you,
Richard,
when you have known him, he doesn't, you see, the man cares about the work and cares about the country more than the largesse that people are now getting double pay and stealing money that we are complaining.
In effect, he'll be prepared to work with his own car.
You see, what I'm telling you is that he has never complained of that fact that he's using his own car.
Right, you heard it. You are a journalist, you heard it.
Let's move on. Gentlemen, I am grateful. Let's wrap up on this one. The statesman says Invincible Forces seize UNDP flat at cantonment. Contractor on site assaulted. The story says that some national security operatives, well-built men believed to be members of the infamous Invincible Forces of the NPP, have forcibly taken over the UN Development Program flats at cantonment after allegedly abusing and assaulting the contractor of the redevelopment project. We're told that the group was led by 2 national security operatives who have been occupying the flat with the explanation that their party is in power. Redevelopment works have thus been brought to an abrupt end. The contractor of the project is all alleged to have been physically assaulted by the 2 groups, bringing the redevelopment project to a total halt. A visit to the facility saw some artisans who allegedly broke into the site with the aid of the alleged national security operatives, reconstructing portions of the flats. That's a story. It's not too clear as to what has happened. But Richard, I don't know if you, since you speak on infrastructure, you have any further detail on this issue.
I think, Bright, there's one attitude that I've taken over the period, that when it comes to people misconducting themselves and going out there to do things unlawfully, that is to say, if this reportage is true.
Right.
Which paper is it coming from?
Heritage.
Heritage.
You doubt some newspapers?
No, I want to know, so that at least when I'm
just
quoting,
want to know. Okay.
So it appeared in this particular
okay,
paper.
right.
I mean, if assuming without admitting this is true, I want us to deal with crime as crime.
Right.
Without necessarily tagging it with groups and all those kind of things. Because what it is that when you continue to promote this kind of reportage, a time will come, armed robbers will be coming to our homes and they'll be wearing either NDC t-shirt or MPP t-shirt. So that when issues about the arrest occurs, we'll have the general secretaries of possibly both parties coming in to defend them. Let's deal with individuals who go out there to misconduct themselves or go about misbehaving. I do not have full details about this alleged attack or assault of whatever it is, or takeover of this particular structure as being put forward by Delhi Heritage. And I think that we need to I will solicit for more information on this. Beyond that, what I want to understand and appreciate is that I heard an aspect of it that says that there was BNI or national security individuals involved.
Yeah.
So how do you...
In fact, their names are even in the story.
So how do you...
they mentioned 2 of them, Napoleon and Jude Banahene.
How do you put the 2 together? Is it a national security operative? Is it that because these individuals might be national security operative and because they are well built, somebody assumed that because any well built person in t-shirt, and you can call them any kind of force, invisible force, or that maybe the whatever group maybe in the NDC or anything. Right. Is it that we need to do? Is it that these are individuals who are conducting a lawful operations and they are being mandated by law to go about doing whatever it is that they are doing, and you do not have the full details? I'm saying these things are sketchy. They're believed to be. I'm not sure that they have invisible for their uniform. I'm not sure that any media person could sit down and say, ABCD people belong to invisible force. I mean, within the party, these few individuals who have mad affairs of the party security, they are not individuals who go about misconducting themselves and doing things all over like that. But I would call for the needed investigation in this matter so that we can know the truth. Because at the end of the day, sometimes you see some media men can be very mischievous and carve out stories and put things out there just to denigrate the current administration, the party, and also drag people who have no knowledge about it. A couple of years ago, I think a year ago, about 4 people were arrested in Koforidia, and the report we heard was that they were invincible forces who had gone to some schools to misconduct themselves. When they were arrested, not knowing that there were 2 friends who had issues with a teacher who had taken a facility or from there alone, and payment had become an issue. So they went to the school to confront the person. And when these are not party people, they are not connected to MPP, but because they are well-built individuals and they went out there and misconducted themselves, people tag them like that. So we need to look at that. There was some issue where people went and took bicycles from a state institution, I think NADMO to be precise. I think bicycle or mattresses and something like that, up north. And when these individuals were first arrested, they were talking about they being invisible forces. Later on, upon a further investigation, they realized that they were former workers of the institution, and they claimed that they did not get ex gratia. So they went back to take things, believing that they are entitled to the same. So we need to look at all these things. If indeed they are individuals who went and did something bad, let's allow the laws to deal with them.
And that's what I'll push for. Regardless of which political divide the individual belongs. If you're an MPP person, you need to know the laws of the land and conduct yourself pretty well. If you're an NDC person, know the laws of the land and conduct yourself well. Because the point is that even if you're an NDC person and you go to NDC office and go and destroy property belonging to the NDC, it is not for you, and it's criminal offense, and all those things you'll be dealt with according to law. Remember St. Jananja's constituency when NDC individuals were angry, they banned party stuff and all those things and destroyed party building, and we went to individual assembly members' house and literally burnt his house and all those things. Those things are all criminal things that we ought to look at. I remember when my good friend, Honorable Henry Dusu, before he was called on or appointed to join the ministers of President Mahama, some individuals you believe to be his friends or associates went out there, bent NDC placards, billboards, destroying NDC offices and all those things. Upon further interrogation, their call was that because Harry Naidusa have not been appointed, you cannot do that. You need to understand that this is a country of laws. So anybody who goes out there to do anything bad, the laws of the land would have to do it.
I'm grateful, Richard. Sedu, please come in there.
Right. There's a saying that if you create a monster and the monster finish eating your enemies, it will come back to eat you. Okay? I am happy you mentioned names of those who went to attack the UNDP office. Honorable Kennedy Agyapong, who is a member of their party and a member of parliament, came out to make a statement that these invincible forces are part and parcel of the NPP, and it is an association. 3 months ago, they held a meeting in Tamale, and they made pronouncements that they can go to any government office or any office in this country, cause mayhem and walk away free, and nothing can happen to them. That they have the backing from the presidency.
What are you saying?
That's what they said.
That was what they said. Invincible forces in Tamale. In Tamale. And Kennedy Agyapong came out and said that if anybody make a mistake and arrest them, he's going to take the person to the cleaners. This is what Kennedy Agyapong said. Please, can you allow me? Can you allow me?
Elevate the discussion. This is a public. People are more intelligent of us.
You are not the one to tell me that.
And let's
you are not the
debate.
Right. Be comfortable. Richard, try to be comfortable. I mean, be responsible. You are speaking for the government, so be responsible. Right. This is a group of people who immediately the NPP was declared winners, they started burning toll booths across the country. When they went to pick the toll booths from the responsible authorities and they faced resistance, they burnt down the toll booths. They attacked a senior police officer in front of the Flagstaff House, at which moment the president and the vice president were in office. Nothing happened to any one of them. They went to Kumasi, Ashanti region, and dragged the regional security coordinator down the stairs. When these young men were arrested and sent to court, they went and attacked the court, chased away the judge and lawyers in the court. Later, they were made to pay a paltry 20,000 cedis.
That's the
and
law.
walk freely.
But that's the law.
And walk freely. And when the president was confronted with this issue, he said that the young men are yet to get jobs. And if they get jobs, all these things will stop. Which jobs are you going to... Please. Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, how many presidents would we have in Ghana? Please, let me continue. Please. Please. Can you just respect yourself? I beg you. Yesterday, please. Yesterday, Sammy Crab came out yesterday to make a statement to this fact and said that if these young men are allowed to continue with this act, Ghana one day we can't sleep in our rooms. This was how Boko Haram was formed. The NPP must put these guys on check. UNDP office is not a political office. It is not a minister's office. You see,
it's not UNDP office. It's just flats that I think they used to serve.
But it is not for any government appointee.
No, it's not.
You know, you can't continue seizing, accommodations and offices just like that, and the government is doing nothing about it. Of recent times, you saw the way armed robbery cases were on the rise. It has to take people with voices to come out and talk before the police could act. Because if you arrest one person and the person tends to be an invisible forces member, they are going to allow them to walk freely on the streets of the country. Because they were used from the time of opposition to the time they came into government. The president have a lot of work to do when it comes to these invincible forces. Or else, one day if people cannot contain them, they will also take ammunition to fight them. And that will not augur well for this country.
Okay. Johnny is here. Johnny, good morning once again.
Thank you very much, Bright. TV3 channel is the best among all due to their review of wonderful and pleasant music videos. Thank you very much. Snake Saga, people living in mansions and riding magnificent cars only to realize they are fraudsters in suits. Ablade, Fiekuma Zongo in Takrade and Senior Bright. Tell Nanado that we don't eat GDP, so you should stop lying to Ghanaians with the GDP stories. People cannot buy common food. Then MPP is talking about GDP. Osman Burkison in Tabale. Mr. Host, the current manager, board chair, and all the board members should make their salaries and allowances public, because we, the SNIT contributors, don't want to hear any explanation about our money chop again. And good morning. The MPP government has nothing to offer Ghanaians. They promised nurses by March ending, their financial clearance will be out. As I text you now, no financial clearance for nurses. Kelly. A.U. Farouk in Tamale says, good morning. The MMT bus saga malfeasance is a clear indication that the super incompetent government appointed corrupt officials to mine various institutions. This malfeasance should be treated as such by the special prosecutor, John Martin Amidu. Ghana First demo, Tamale loading, 21st of this month, you say. And please, can you ask Ghana Immigration Service about when they'll come out with the details of the 84,000 vouchers they sold to Ghanaian citizens to get employed? John from Cape Coast. And maybe finally, being a member of parliament is a position with pay. Being a cabinet minister is a position with pay. So if the member of parliament is appointed as a minister of state, do you expect a parliamentarian minister to receive salary as parliamentarian? Akufo-Addo-led government is a joke. This thing is nothing new in Ghana governance. Currently, his parliamentarian ministers are in the same category. What witch-hunting exercise? If you want to stop this, my little advice I'll give you is, as a young man who wants the good and best for Ghana and Ghanaians, is no parliamentarian should be appointed as a cabinet minister. Well, that's what our constitution says. 50% must come from parliament. But if it becomes necessary to appoint a particular parliamentarian as cabinet minister, he or she must resign the position as a parliamentarian. This makes sense more than witch hunting. Spare us, Emmanuel Teku in Ho. Bonti Benjamin and Chairman Bwako says the law enforcement agencies should deal with all those involved in the SNIT 147 million software procurement fraud without fear or favor. Pensioners are bre, you say. Hashtag. Good morning, TV3. You people are doing a good job. Congratulations. You see, one thing which is disturbing Ghanaians is the fact that if they give work to contractors, they use I don't get it. Well, they say they do Jinahoji, and 3 days later you see that the road begins to get damaged. Okay, Ransford talks it from there. You think that, well, their Dar road is in a bad state and it must be dealt with. Good morning, Johnny. Dumso is really back. Daniel in Koligono is saying. And finally, good morning. Many Ghanaians who voted against President Mahama have regretted. Since this clueless Akufo-Addo came to power, everyday corruption, and instead of fighting gargantuan corruption in his government, he rather wants to legalize homosexuality. No former minister took double salary. The CID boss is more MPP. I say Christian Abeka. I thank you very much. Right. Grateful.
Johnny, grateful once again. And gentlemen, let's wrap up our conversation then. Richard, I'm grateful for your time with us. You speak on infrastructure. Are you aware that there have been frequent lights out these days?
I think what I know of is that the ECG is undergoing some routine maintenance across certain parts of the capital. And I think it is better. And the good thing about this is that these things are announced that within this area, this particular transformer will be faced. Because you see, we are headed into the raining season, so they need to be ready. And cables that are not positioned very well, they need to also take care of it. They are making sure that trees that are gotten themselves entangled with the cables, they are pruning them. So there are a lot of activities happening. But in terms of power, we have Ineses, and we are currently even selling to La Côte d'Ivoire.
So it could just be technical fault.
And Togo. So we don't have issues with power generation.
Okay. Seydou, I'm grateful for your time with us too.
Yes, right. I think under the MPP, they see Dumso as technical problems, but under the NDC, it was a human problem. On Saturday and Sunday, the northern region will sleep in darkness. That is the announcement we have gotten. We'll sleep in darkness. And this is consistent. It has been consistent for the past 1 month, where you just lie down, your lights will go off for like 4 or 5 times. Technical problems doesn't exist that way. Please, I beg you. You see, anytime you talk, I'll just be watching you.
Okay, we are wrapping up.
I'll just be watching. I'll just be watching you, jotting down some points to clear the mischief you might have caused. I beg you. I said.
They're having power reduced for them.
Which
are getting
right.
Okay.
Tell me one. Tell me one. Tell me 1 megawatt of power you have added since you came into power. So even if Ghanaians are enjoying power today, give credit to John Dramani Mahama government. And you see, Ghana First demonstration is moving to Northern Region in Tamale on Saturday.
Okay, really?
And God willing,
Saturday?
yes, this Saturday. And we want to make sure we push this government. Indeed, that illegal document they call an agreement, that is not signed by any minister or whoever in Parliament. We want it to be revoked so that Ghana will have our freedom.
I'm grateful.
And I wish all they are conducting the branch elections in Tolon constituency on Friday. And I wish my constituents all the best. And at the right time, when all is done, I will come out and start our campaign towards removing this super incompetent government.
It's a member of the NDC from the Tolon constituency, Seydou Fitta, Regina Santi-Yeboah, speaks for government on infrastructure. I'm grateful, gentlemen, for your time. You sent in your comment. We're grateful.
The World Amateur Bodybuilding Association Community Qualifiers and the WABA, that's what it means, and it stands for the World Amateur Bodybuilding Association, and they are doing a bit of a community qualifiers here in Ghana, and I've been joined in the studio by the president of WABA Ghana, Victor Baden, who's going to tell us more about WABA. Now, Victor, you're welcome.
Thank you, Kawa.
So what has how long has WABA been in Ghana, and just let us start with that. How long has it been in Ghana?
Well, WABA Ghana is a new bodybuilding federation, bodybuilding and fitness federation. Since its inception, we've streamlined activities to generate an interest in the sport of bodybuilding and also promote fitness, good health and wellness in the country. We started by building a strong foundation for the promotion of bodybuilding and fitness, and we decided to embark on a community challenges, community bodybuilding challenges. I mean, that's grassroots bodybuilding, you know, and that's where I think that we have to start and then help unearth talent, help unearth potential bodybuilders, and then bring them to the limelight and even get them to compete on the international circuit. So that's what we've done. We've embarked on some community auditions, which has been really very successful.
How many communities have you been to so far?
We've been to Ashayaman, we've been to Tema, we've been to Adenta, and then the last one was a district qualifier. So what we're doing is that there are structures there. We're doing the communities, and then we'll bring it to the districts, and then we'll bring it to the regional, and then to the national. Yes, yes. So what we're doing is this weekend we're having a fitness conference. It's the first of its kind. It's never happened here in Ghana. We really want to promote fitness. We want the fraternity to really understand what it means to be well, what it means to be a fitness instructor, fitness trainer, a fitness coach, what it means to be a good bodybuilder, and even how to judge in bodybuilding. So we're doing a conference where it's been dubbed the Face of Fitness Ghana. We have Mr. Trevor Chang, the president of WABA UK, coming from the UK to assist us with judging, how to educate and enlighten us into how to judge bodybuilding properly. We also have Mr. Brian Cox, who is a chiropractor. Dr. Brian Cox is probably the best chiropractic doctor here in the country. He will enlighten us as to how to train properly and also use your skeletal structure and the anatomy thing, the whole anatomy thing, you know.
So to be a good bodybuilder, you need to know that.
You have to have a clear understanding the physiology of your body and how it applies to the kind of your body type. You know, we have all sorts of different types of bodies, so you really have to have a clear understanding of what it takes for your type to advance into a world stage. So Dr. Brian Cox will be there. Myself, I'll take the fitness coaching side of things, where I'll educate our bodybuilders and our fitness public on how to train beginners in fitness. You know, if you let's say, for example, if you encounter someone who's come to the gym for the first time, you know, you really have to understand the dynamics like yourself. Exactly, exactly. So the proper ways of starting off. Yeah. You know, I think the foundations are very, very, very important, and that's what WABA is all about. We want to build a strong foundation for a better, productive future.
How visible is Ghana on the international front in WABA?
It is very visible. I mean, we've come a long way. You know, we since I was out in the UK for some time. Yeah. Came back 2012. Yeah. You know, started doing my thing, helping most of our bodybuilders here in Ghana. And in the space of 3 years, we become world champions. I mean, we go to the Arnold Classic in South Africa every year, and we're winning gold medals for Ghana. So we've come a long way. I think Ghana has become very formidable in terms of bodybuilding. We just have to now build on it. Yeah. You know.
So where is the fitness conference at?
The fitness conference is at the ISGC. It's in Terman, Oyarifa, on the Ebri stretch, and we entreat every fitness enthusiast to be there.
You've not mentioned the time.
Yeah, it starts from 10 a.m. on Saturday morning. Actually, on Friday we'll have the Ironman Challenge, which is a powerlifting championship, and then on Saturday 10 a.m. we'll start a conference. The conference will run up to 3 p.m. and then we'll have a bodybuilding championship. So the guys will go through pre-judging, and then we'll wrap it all up on Sunday with a grand show.
Thanks very much, Victor.
Thanks, Kawawa.
Right. So that was Victor Baden there. Victor is the president of the World Amateur Bodybuilders Association of Ghana. Here. So you should join them. It's at Tayman on the Accra Ebri Road, and it's at 10 a.m. on Saturday. It's the World Fitness Conference here in Ghana. My name is Yao Ofosulabi, and this is how we end the sports segment here on New Day. More sports news in our subscribe bulletins.
The Bank of Ghana earlier issued a minimal capital requirement for the local banks. They've raised a few concerns about this because they believe it's neck-breaking. Take a look at the story. We'll return to have a conversation about how to fix the insolvency on our local banking front.
The local banks argue that governments have consistently overlooked the efforts of local banks and granted huge contracts to foreign banks operating in the country. This, they claim, has put foreign banks in good condition ahead of local banks, most of whom are struggling to meet the 400 million cedis capital requirement. The members of the association made the accusation when they met government at the Jubilee House to present a petition for an extension of the deadline for meeting the capital requirement from December 2018 to December 2022. Among other issues, the local banks accuse governments of giving contracts such as collection of money in key state institutions to foreign banks. They also pointed out that government is quick in using foreign banks as financial advisors during major projects. Citing Nigeria as an example to buttress their point, representatives of the local banks argue that Nigeria has deliberately made a policy where a huge percentage of government's contracts are awarded to local banks to help them grow and also help them create jobs. They maintain that situation is the opposite in Ghana, where major contracts go to the foreign banks. The local banks also shut down arguments that they must grow their capacity to undertake big-ticket projects. They stress that it is not the business of all banks to undertake big-ticket projects. In addition, they argue that the solution to challenges facing the local banks is not to sharply increase the capital requirement in a short period, but to ensure good corporate governance.
And so those are some of the concerns. We've been joined in studio by Osei JC, he's head of banking supervision at the Central Bank. Osei, welcome and thank you very much for your time. And also joining us is Professor Cletus Totonuese, an economist and CEO of Claydon Consult. Prof, good morning. It's been a long time. How are you doing?
I'm doing
great.
Fine.
Let's start off the conversation this way. So what exactly is the difficulty from where the Central Bank says? So, say the banks have their concerns, but you insist that you will go on with the directive regardless. What is the difficulty?
Thank you, and good morning to my listeners. I guess you are referring to the increase in the minimum paid up capital.
Exactly.
Of the banks, which is expected to come on by 31st December 2018.
Right.
Yeah. The business of banking thrives on confidence. Confidence and trust.
Okay.
These two are the corner pillars of banking business. People work hard to get money, they spend some, and they put some with the banks, they deposit with the banks. Hoping that when the time comes and they need their monies, the banks are going to make available the monies to them, right?
Right.
When the monies are given to the banks, the monies are not supposed to be sitting in the vaults of the bank forever.
Right.
The banks would have to intermediate. They would have to give these monies to businesses and individuals who also need monies to run their business.
Right.
And in so doing, in the intermediation process, the banks are exposed to one risk or the other.
Right.
Some of these risks could crystallize. And when they crystallize, they impact on the equity, the capital of the banks. So over the years, what has happened is that the way banks have conducted their activities have resulted in some of these risks crystallizing and impacting on their capital.
Under your supervision, the central bank's supervision?
Surely under the supervision of the bank, of the central bank, but I'll address this issue as the discussion unfolds. And the impact of these risks is that they reduce the equity of the banks, the paid up capital of the banks. So you realize that you have banks, you have some banks that do not have adequate capital. And maybe we had some banks that were insolvent in the sense that the assets that they carry were not enough to cater for the liabilities that they had contracted. In that situation, you have banks with weak balance sheets. So the question is, how do we address the situation?
Is the minimum capital requirement the paid
Yes, I'm
up?
coming there.
Is that we don't have too much?
Yes, so what I'm saying is that...
Is that a panacea?
Yes, what I'm saying is that, so what it means is that the banks would have to bring in additional capital to strengthen their balance sheet. So that depositors, you and I, who have placed our monies with the banks, will not be at risk. Because if a bank doesn't have capital or adequate capital and losses crystallize, they impact immediately on depositors' funds. So we want to strengthen the balance sheet of the banks.
Prof, let me bring you in at this point. You're an economist, a very experienced one indeed. This is the story the central bank is painting, or the picture is painting to us. What do you see from where you sit? The banks are becoming insolvent and the risk factors are increasing. What do you see?
Well, I think the solvency aspect has been handled by him clearly.
Right.
You must be credit worthy. You must be wealthy. You must be sound.
Okay.
He has touched on those things. A bank operates on trust. He even added confidence.
Right.
Now, when we come to the banks, we have given them what we call universality.
Right.
They do commercial banking, they do development banking. Some of them venture into areas, I want to say that maybe they don't know the terrain very well.
Okay.
So the whole idea about solvency is not from Bank of Ghana.
Okay.
It is an international requirement. I think Basel III even
increase the intent and content of Basel II in bringing out some of the capital requirement. You know, when you say 400, 400 is 88,000. 400 million is
90 million.
88, or let's say 89 million.
Our bank said that's too expensive. They can't meet it.
You see, you are a universal bank.
Right.
You are not a savings and loan bank. We have standards, best practices of the world. You have money in the bank, you are not thinking about one day you get up, the money is not there, like the DKM type of thing. You are confident, you sleep well, you work hard, you put the money there. So that confidence, that trust should not be compromised. And one of the ways of handling those things are the upsurges, the risk factors that can come, including uncertainties. When they hit the bank, has the bank the financial muscle to continue? Much of the current developments in Ghana is not a banking crisis. I think we are talking about it from a very unprofessional point of view.
Our banks being too ambitious. You talk about they venturing sometimes into terrains that they may not well know. Are they being too ambitious?
Not necessarily.
Because they are running a universal system.
Not necessarily. And that brings in the risks banks take. You can't be a bank. They bring the money for you, and then you keep it and hold all the cash. Then you are not an intermediary. You have to move the money to those who need money. And do business. So here comes the risk element. And when we say risk, some risks are not the risk in terms of the probability of the occurrence that they will happen are not known. We call them uncertainty. Sometimes you have to venture into uncertainty areas, like some sectors. Sometimes you have to, you know the risk, you calculate, you're moving. There are different maturities for the investment, the placement you do with the money for purposes of intermediation. And then at times, when the maturities differ, and then there's this demand on the banks, it creates problems. So the bank must be strong to be able to meet it. That is where the adequacy comes in, the capital adequacy.
I'll say, let me come to you. So now the banks are saying that, look, you are literally collapsing them, and you are not giving them the vim to move on. They have also accused government, for example, giving contracts to foreign banks and making them even stronger. What does the supervision look like from where you sit? Are we doing enough? Because every time we have, for example, UT, Capital Bank, the first people to be fingered will be Bank of Ghana.
Thank you very much. Let me address this issue of under the supervision of the banking supervision, the Bank of Ghana. You see, we have what we call core principles of banking supervision. And if you look at the objective of banking supervision, it is not to avoid bank failures. It is to mitigate the risk of bank failures. Even in the advanced economies where they have very strong and effective banking supervision systems, they've been bank failures.
So you are being accused wrongly?
Yes. Yes, that's what I'm saying. Let me give you this example. We have Kolebu, we have 37, and all the hospitals in this country, but people die. So our role is to mitigate the risk of bank failures. Then let me come back to your
So for example, let me ask quickly. So for example, I go to a regular bank. I want to access a loan, a facility, and part of the process is to ask me to sketch a map to my home. Now, if I've gone to rent an apartment, it will expire, say we're in April, it will expire in June. How would a bank know that I will leave that location in June and move to another place? Clearly, that's a big risk that
that's a big risk. So, Prof said something. Banks have to mitigate the risk that they are exposed to in their activities.
Who will guide them to do that?
Yes, it is the responsibility of the bank, the directors and the key management staff to ensure that they have risk management framework in place that will mitigate some of these risks.
Do they have that?
Yes.
Do they have that?
Yes, that's the question. So the question is, you asked a very good question. That is why those of us in Bank of Ghana, the regulators, we also have the responsibility of assessing the adequacy and effectiveness of the kind of risk management framework that the banks have put in place to mitigate the risk that they are exposed to. So, let me, a bank takes customers' deposits, grant them out as loans, and the bank did not follow its own credit underwriting standards.
How?
That's the how. That's the question. A bank takes deposited money and give the monies to another subsidiary of the bank over and above statutory allowed limits.
That's
where the
that's
rules
an
are,
illegality.
that's the where the rules are clear, clearly stated that you cannot lend to subsidiary below above a certain level. You have insider dealings where directors and people take money, they override controls. So that is why Bank of Ghana, we are saying that, you talk about UT, we have the mandate of ensuring that where we see that the interests of depositors are being jeopardized, the activities of banks are exposing depositors to very high risk, then the law allows us to intervene.
Are now losing a lot of respect in terms of confidence from the public. Where were they? Negative 24%. Where were they? Where was the Bank of Ghana?
It's a worry to somebody like me because it's telling me our financial experts, I will put it, are not doing the right diligence that to keep them going.
Every institution has a supervising rule. I mean, so Bank of Ghana, supervises all the banks. So when they look, let's say they are up there and they look down, they say this one is going wrong, they cut it off. And then we continue with the rest.
Ghanaian banking system, I think it's fine, but just that it's not helping the ordinary Ghanaian. They take so much from the people and give so little back. Why do you think people had interest in DKM and the rest of the people?
And those are some members of the public expressing their concerns and worry about it. But let's wrap up there. Let's get into the issue of corporate governance and compliance, which I think is a crux of this conversation. Prof, so the local banks are talking about multinationals or foreign banks having more energy and robustness over them, and they feel disadvantaged. What do you say?
I don't think the basis should be national and multinational. The basis, if we really want to break it down, should be what banking are you doing?
Right.
You are a universal banker. You are doing commercial banking and development banking. You are given that license. So forget about whether you're national or multinational. This brings in the corporate governance issues. You see, banks themselves have their own internal control systems. They have the compliance unit, they have the auditor pre and post audit.
Right.
They come out. If you are a bank and you are hiding information because maybe you have overexposed yourself, and these are practices, rules and regulations that the monetary authorities or the central bank has given us. And you are violating it. You don't even respect your own internal. You create additional risks. So corporate governance, the board of governors, the directors, must make sure they take care of those things. They comply with the rules. If you are into investment banking, I think SEC is there. They will give you ideas. Bank of Ghana is there. The rules are there. Why do you practice differently? Why should you overexpose yourself to a sector or to one individual?
But how would the people out there know? If I take my money and walk into a bank, how would I know all these things you're talking? They sound too technical. For me, as an ordinary customer of a bank, I want my confidence to be restored. How do we do that?
Yes, but that is the reason why the capital requirement has to go up to ensure that your liquidity, not only the liquidity that can be managed, but your solvency is guaranteed.
Is that the solution? Is that the main
It's
solution?
a key solution to, if we reduce the local banks, what we call the capital adequacy requirement, we reduce it. Let's say 300 or 200 instead of 400.
Right.
Those who are depositing, as he said, they are becoming more intelligent. Why should I give the money to the person who, in terms of the capital adequacy requirement, is paying less? I will go to the other person.
Are we seeing a problem coming where a lot of these banks may not be able to meet it, so they will have to shut down?
Of course, one of the advantages of standard financial requirement is we have too many banks. In my kitchen at home, then I say I have put up a bank. Banking is not about just the place. It's the rules and the regulation. They are part of banking. So you need a situation where that individual, very intelligent, should. Now the bank, there are too many. You want to bring the standard. You must have the financial muscle. You must be able to sustain your place in the market. If you can't, of course, mergers will come, buyouts will come, and so sellouts will happen. And then we have few banks very strong so that we can syndicate for big projects.
Osei, where do we go from here? What is the BOG's forward march for all of us? Because as I sit here, I feel unsafe.
Yeah. You see, as a depositor, you put your money in a bank, and your fortunes are tied to the fortunes of the bank.
Right.
As for shareholders, they will be reported to, they will get their dividends and everything. But as a depositor, the question is, do you have a way of knowing what is going on in there? That is why we are saying that as regulators who have issued licenses to banks, we have the responsibility of ensuring that you are protected, your funds are protected.
Right.
That is it, because you, the depositor, your fortunes are tied to the fortunes of the bank.
Absolutely.
And you don't know what is going there in there. At best, you are interested on interest on your deposit. So if the central bank, the regulator, is taking decisions that will protect the interests of depositors, by saying that Bank ABCD, or the banks in Ghana, we want to ensure that you have adequate capital so that when there are losses and when risk crystallize, they don't impact directly on the deposit of the depositor, but rather the bank has the financial muscle by way of equity to absorb the losses, so that when the depositor comes, he or she can get
will not
the money.
feel the shock.
That is it. So we are saying that by way of corporate governance, we have issued a directive, and those who qualify to sit on boards of banks must be fit and proper, must be people of integrity.
Well, is it the case that people are appointed to boards without the necessary qualification and expertise and experience? Is that it?
The laws that we have, if you look at the Banks and Specialized Deposit Taking Institutions Act, the law is clear on who qualifies to sit on the board of banks, and we're going to enforce it strictly, just as we've done in time past.
When are you beginning?
It's been issued. We have issued corporate governance directive. The law is there. In addition to that, we've issued corporate governance directive, which the banks and SDIs are supposed to comply with. Then, besides that, we are going to issue what we call fit and proper. If you don't meet the fit and proper test, you cannot sit on a board.
What is this? Give me two of those.
Yes, you look at your experience.
Okay.
You look at your qualification. You look at your moral integrity. You can have the experience and the qualification, but look, banking, for you to get a banking license, it is a privilege. And what we are saying is that you must use this license to the benefit of depositors and the economy as a whole. That is what we are saying. So we cannot issue licenses to people who are not fit and proper, as well as shareholders.
Thank you.
Prof, we're going to issue risk management guidelines very soon, so that it will help the banks to be able to put in place very good risk management systems.
Prof, you have the final word. Where do we go from here? With all your experience internationally and locally, where do we go from here? The banks argue that the government is not creating an enabling environment for them to thrive. You have heard the issues. You know the issues. Where do we go from here?
Well, from here, the competition should continue. Those projects, the local banks and their supporters are advocating that the projects go to multinational banks and so on and so forth, they should get their loins and compete. Proposal, asset banking is there, corporate banking, they should put their proposal properly together. They provide services which government of Ghana may need so that they compete. You know, they invite for, we call it expression of interest.
Right.
You put it in, and then they will request you to put in a proposal. Let them do it professionally. It is, in fact, many of the banks we call multinational, it's Ghanaians who are working there.
Right.
But the management and then the board of directors, I'm not going to say that there is this idea that because it's multinational, so the board of directors are better. They must do the right thing.
The right thing is
the right thing.
Is the right
the
way
policy.
to go.
They must have their metrics of risks, know what one to handle properly, those they can contain, so that their destination of assets.
Would you recommend measures?
They will happen.
Say
they will happen.
People like to stand alone, and that's why they are falling. Would you recommend measures?
Of course, they are even going to happen. In fact, honestly, we should go to about 500, 600 million Ghana.
Thank you very much, Jose. I wish we had more time to talk about this, but unfortunately we ran out of time. Osei JC is the head of banking supervision at the Central Bank, and also Professor Cletus Dodonu is an economist and the CEO of Clay Dodd Consult. They've been joining me to find a solution here on your award-winning morning show for banks, local banks, insolvency. We'll be right back with some more here on New Day.
Welcome back. So we're crossing over into Tamale to find out what has been going on with them. But of course, the case of Tramadol that seems to be heightened in the Ashanti region and Accra has also hit the northern region. We visited there and we spoke to some people concerning the rising concerns about the use and abuse of Tramadol in Tamale. Let's see this.
Tramadol is a medicine that relieves pain, and I know a friend who used to take it, but it's kind of like when he overtakes the Tramadol, it makes him high.
These our young guys that are out there, they are misusing it, taking it to misbehave out there. So I think Tramadol is a good drug, but let's not abuse it.
I've ever taken Tramadol before. I had accidents and a doctor prescribed it to me. It's having side effects because when the more you take it, the more it weaks your nerves or you feel sleeping and some kind of easy type.
Welcome back. So you saw people's views out there on the use and specifically the abuse of Tramadol amongst the youth in Tamale. But I'm joined in studio by Mohammed Hafiz Abdallah, the Demanar of Tamale. And he's going to be talking to us about the use of Tramadol and also what Tamale has been up to. Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to TV3 New Day.
Thank you very much. You have a very good set.
Great. Thank you for that. But let's go into this, abuse of Tramadol amongst the youth. What do you think accounts for it in Tamale, and what is Demanar and your people? What are you doing about it to curb the situation?
Thank you very much for having me this morning, and I want to say assalamu alaikum to my people in Tamale. That's why the problem with Tramadol is this. I believe that it lies solely to the government, because the people who are supposed to monitor this things are not doing their job. The Food and Drugs Board, I believe they are the people responsible for this thing. There are a lot of pharmacies in Tamale not licensed, you know what I mean? And if places like that are not licensed and they are in the areas, then the youth are going to go and buy them. I believe that it should be a prescribed drug that is prescribed by a doctor. Then you go to take your prescription form and then you get a drug. But it's not happening that way. Anybody can sell it. Thank God we have a leadership today who is actually trying to do a lot. Myself, we've done a lot of education on that. We've been to the forest. We have a place that we call the forest. We've been to the forest, drived out all the drug users and drug pushers. And the mayor of Tamale is doing very, very well on that phase, and we're still doing it, but I think government needs to support the youth. Peer pressure, one, lack of employment, two, and just lack of idleness, so that is the part, and lack of education as well. People believe that if I take the drug, Tramadol or Extra C, that will make me hype, or I'll be part of the team of people. I mean, people take it for different reasons because they have nothing to do. I mean, people who have something to do, I don't believe they'll be taking tramadol. But the ball lies with the government that they need to check these things because the drugs are coming from somewhere. If our borders are slacked and the people who are supposed to also go and supervise as pharmacists are not doing it, then it's a money making for some people who will just use it and abuse it, and then because they can make money out of it, basically they're going to do that. So that's our problem.
But when you go on your drive to talk to the youth and educate them, and they talk about these various, exam reasons, poverty, idleness, lack of education, but they do see the effect it has on people who have abused it. And are they happy with the effect they see? Because obviously if you're not happy, then you'll be forced to stop it, but they still engage in it. Yeah,
this youth that do those things is basically that they have no hope for the future. For me, it's about hope. My son or my friends who are a bit privileged will not do tramadol because they know the effects of it, But somebody who is just there, he has no future. He doesn't see anything for it. So after all, what do I care? It's something that they used to forget their pains and all those things. So if they do that, then it's something that's like, okay, in Dagbani we say so basically that's what's happening.
Right, but let's move on to Tamale and the other side of the good stuff that's happening in Tamale. I hear you're doing the Mayor Excellence Award. Tell us a little about that.
Great. I have to apologize that the mayor is not here himself. The mayor is in Accra, but he came in late and he has a lot of this. And I'm a government appointee to the Assembly, and I'm one of the planning committee members of this Mayor's Excellence Award. The Mayor's Excellence Award is to award brilliance, the unsung heroes, the woman who wakes up at 3 a.m., Zoom Lion, sweeping the streets to keep Tamale clean, the people who have done well, business-wise, agriculture, creative arts, people who have actually done well for the metro. So Musa Superior, who is the mayor of Tamale, came up with this initiative and said, look, it's overdue. We need to award excellency. That a country that doesn't award its heroes is not worth dying for. So he came up with this initiative that we need to do it, and it's going to be the first of its kind in Ghana. It's always the central government that is doing these awards, and now we've taken it to the local level to make sure that our people, the Alaji 11, people who have really done well in promoting Tamale, people have, like Fancy Gadam, who has done very well for the North. He has put us on the map. He certainly has. But there's a catch. You can't nominate yourself. Someone has to nominate you in your area to say that, oh, we recognize what this gentleman is doing, so we're putting him as a nominee, and then the committee will now vet you and know that if you really deserve it. Otherwise, if we just throw it out there, people will just be nominating people, but somebody has to nominate you, and then the committee will vet you and know that, okay, this gentleman actually deserves it. So when he gets that kind of
award, when is it happening?
On the 30th of June. That's when that event will take place.
Okay, so on the 30th of June, all of us will be heading towards the north, Tamale specifically, to support Muhammad Hafiz Abdallah, the Demana, and the rest of the Tamale people in awarding those who have done very well for Tamale. Of course, we should all remember that Tamale is part of Ghana. It's in the northern part of Ghana, and as they celebrate themselves, we also celebrate them. And congratulations and well done for all that you're doing. But guys, we have a little time just to wrap up, and so we'll take a quick break. We'll be back here with more on New Day.
Big Rose, yay! Kasabim, vim, I fade more mommy vim, vim, hey, Kasabim, vim, I fade more mommy vim, vim, I baby you, I try you, and Big Rose into the bra, many women, we give me sick of talk and do different colors, linear nature, no one, come home, I'm a tipame, baby to me and send you, maintaining, to me, one, I'm a dana dream, shall be yo, Nana man ponsa, mini shaker, and I dream many boys, you visit down, yeah, come back, ya bedroom boss on a sintimba, we say, oh, wash it, now me see your semi dummy, now me see your semi dummy, now me see your semi dummy, now me see your semi dummy.
Back in. Guess what? Now we're throwing back, and which was your first cellular phone that you had? Right? Can you find yours?
The Nokia 3310.
Yeah, the 3310. That would be this, right?
You know, I have a bad memory, but I know I had one of those at some point, and then I had number 7.
Number 7 will be this one.
Yes.
Okay.
And then the flip. Everybody had a Motorola flip at some point.
Yeah, this one.
Yes.
Then you're a new person because. My dad used to have that. I used to steal credit. Yeah, it was a Mobitel.
Yes.
I used to steal credit.
Oh, I know number 2 as well.
Yeah, and then this one, interesting. Then my first BlackBerry was this one. where you had a certain slider on the side, scroll on the side. Anyway, so that's it. But in terms of talking about trousers, we're told that some tailors will not make it to heaven. Just take a look at the trouser. It's in all its glory. How many yards, Bright, do you see?
It's about 7.
Really? 7 yards. The jacket is...
The extra, material could sew a dress for someone. That's my only concern. Trust me.
Anyway, but happy birthday to Kwame Jan. It's your birthday today. Happy birthday.
Right, and happy birthday to Catherine Sa and Manasseh of Dede, as you're popularly known. It's coming from Solomon here at TV3.
I see. So if it's your birthday today as well, make sure. But the Parliament of Ghana has released something out there. It says the Parliament's attention has been drawn to allegations of irregularities in the payment of emoluments under Article 71 to some members of Parliament who also served as ministers in the immediate past administration. Parliament wishes to observe that the offence of criminality in the said matter is yet to be proven and would therefore like to implore the police, members of Parliament and the general public to remain calm and circumspect in their comments until the full facts of the matter are determined. Meanwhile, Parliament, in an effort to enhance transparency and accountability, pledges to cooperate fully with the law enforcement agents to bring the matter to a conclusion. Kate Ado is acting public affairs. And on that note, we say thank you.
How is the weekend
you.
going to be like?
Well, I'll be eating fufu. There are a few weddings coming up as well.
Oh, okay.
We should invite Amma to come and have palm wine with us.
No, I don't do palm wine.
She doesn't
I like
turn up
Zafi. That's all.
Look at this lady.
Have a good day. We'll see you same time tomorrow. Stay blessed.